move on with our next presentation for today. I'm going to introduce Charlie Clark. He's an investment manager at AP Ventures. He's responsible for deal origination, structuring, and execution, as well as managing deals post-investment. He also leads on research into attractive investment areas across sustainable energy, resource scarcity, and changing demographics. Welcome, Charlie. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, hello, and thanks for attending my presentation on growing PGM demand through the hydrogen value chain. So as Ed said, my name is Charlie Clark. I'm an investment and portfolio manager at AP Ventures. So in this roughly 30-minute presentation, I'm going to provide more information on the origin of AP Ventures and its partners across the PGM value chain, our view of the hydrogen and closely associated value chains, and how our investment strategy aims to unlock current pain points across these. The core link between PGMs, hydrogen, and decarbonisation, and then a deeper dive on certain PGM using technologies and how they contribute to a decarbonised future. So just staying on this slide then, so just a bit of background on AP Ventures. It's an independent venture capital fund that is based in London and South Africa. We began life as an internal corporate venture arm within Anglo American Platinum in 2014. So the fund was established internally as part of a suite of internal activities to invest in new markets for PGMs to stimulate demand. And hydrogen was identified early on as one of the key markets that had the highest potential to materially move the needle for PGM demand. And the fund has been investing in these technologies for almost 10 years now. So the fund ran internally within Anglo American Platinum for 5 years and then span out as an independent fund in 2018. Anglo has remained a cornerstone investor and has been joined by 11 other investors. And you'll note from the logos on the right-hand side of the screen a strong PGM presence with Impala Platinum, another miner, as an investor, as well as Mitsubishi Corporation as a PGM trader and market maker also in there. So other investors include Sumitomo Corporation, Temasek, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, Pavilion Capital, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Temasek, the Sparks Mirai Creation Fund, which is a fund largely backed by Toyota Motor Corporation, Yara, the fertilizer group, which is a large user of hydrogen at the moment through ammonia, Equinor, the energy company, Plastic Omnium, which is a tier 1 French automotive supplier, and the PIC, a large African pension fund. So our remit as a fund is to directly invest in technologies that use or enable the use of PGMs. By direct use, I mean technologies that use the metals for one of their unique properties, for example, as a catalyst. And by indirectly, I mean a technology that contributes to increased PGM demand, but does not use PGMs directly itself. An example of this would be, say, a technology that stores hydrogen in gaseous form in vehicles more effectively and in a conformable shape, say, versus the cylindrical structures typically seen today. And our investment thesis here would be that this offering, this technology, makes hydrogen more competitive in mobility markets and therefore increases demand for PGM using technology such as fuel cells. So the overall net income is that PGM demand is therefore indirectly increased. So one of our core aims as a fund, therefore, is to increase PGM demand in new markets while creating a sustainable future. We work quite collaboratively between our portfolio companies and our investors, where appropriate, on a range of PGM-related activities such as supply and leasing. So we believe that the most effective way of increasing PGM demand is to invest in the hydrogen value chain. So another one of our aims, therefore, is to help hydrogen realize its potential as a decarbonisation vector across a range of industries, but particularly those in hard-to-abate sectors. And we do this, and to do this, we believe that hydrogen needs to become more of a globally traded commodity, much like oil and gas is. So going back to our investors, then they are interested in hydrogen, how hydrogen technologies can help both decarbonize their existing operations, as well as create new and exciting areas of business and growth. So as touched on earlier, my role at the fund is fourfold. Firstly, I originate new investments and execute deals. I then help to manage these companies post-investment, often sitting on the board, and help work with them, work with our investors and our wider ecosystem to help drive growth, unlocks synergies and collaboration, and ultimately increase value. I'm also responsible for research areas of the fund, understanding across the hydrogen value chain, which we'll talk to shortly, where is attractive for investment, why this is the case, and where constraints lie, and how our investment dollars can best unlock them, therefore increasing the demand for PGMs. And finally, I help manage the relationship with Impala Platinum and help them maximize the investment in our fund. Thanks very much. So I've talked a bit about our core investor base. We've also developed a wide presence across the hydrogen PGM ecosystems with a range of other groups. For example, research institutes where we are looking at newly developed and developing tech associated with our mandate. And there's been several instances where we've actually spun technologies out of research institutes and universities to become companies and then funded them through subsequent rounds. So we have examples of this mainly in Europe. And then co-investors, we have a wide and varied co-investor base that includes household names such as H&M, the fashion group, Amazon, where we have 4 shared investments, energy groups such as Chevron and Shell, and then other large funds, for example, the one which Bill Gates has backed, Breakthrough Energy Ventures. Thanks. So this is our view of the hydrogen value chain and therefore a high-level view of our key investment areas. I appreciate quite a busy slide, but at a high level, there are 3 areas. There's upstream, so the production of hydrogen, the midstream, which encompasses compression, storage, and transportation, and then end use. On the left-hand side, then, is the production of hydrogen. This includes green hydrogen from electrolysis and renewable energy, and also solutions involving natural gas, where the carbon is captured, either in solid or gaseous form. We only invest in technologies that contribute towards a sustainable future, so there has to be a solution for capture where a greenhouse gas is involved. In the middle, then, we have the midstream. So hydrogen today is a large market, around 100 million tons of annual production. The main markets for these are currently ammonia and fossil fuel refining. And much of this production is done at where it's then going to be required as an end use. So this middle part, this midstream, we feel is very underinvested and investing in this is a large part of making hydrogen more of a traded commodity and moving it from regions of low cost production to where there's a net shortage. So we're very interested in enabling the midstream. So depending on the technologies and the molecules that are used, for example, ammonia or liquid organic hydrogen carriers, this can also be very enhancing for the demand of PGMs. And I'll talk to this in a couple of slides. We then look at end use, so either zero carbon solution, for example, in fuel cells, where the only waste product is water, or as a carbon neutral solution, where you are pairing low carbon hydrogen with CO2 to produce a carbon neutral molecule. So you're substituting the carbon and hydrogen you would get from fossil fuels. You're substituting the carbon with the carbon and CO2, and the hydrogen with hydrogen split from water through electrolysis. So for example, producing aviation fuel or polyester. So essentially no new net CO2 production will occur. Thanks. So just quickly on our investment approach, and this is largely to ensure that our investment dollars are maximizing the potential for increased PGM demand through unlocking constraints in the hydrogen value chain. So we spend a lot of time understanding the ecosystem through research, speaking to market participants, understanding business models and existing infrastructure, understanding new tech and how they can be applied to existing business models and infrastructure, speaking with companies, corporates, and startups to help best inform our view. So this shows a snapshot of some of the constraints and is certainly not an exhaustive view. So we see many investment opportunities that directly use PGMs. So these stats are now a little out of date as it refers to a point in 2021, but it gives you a flavor for the ratio of opportunities associated with the different metals. Platinum is the dominant metal that we see, but all the PGMs that we see are used for a unique property, for example, as a catalyst in an electrochemical cell or as a coating to form a protective layer. A larger proportion of our opportunities are indirect PGM users. And across both of these, both indirect and direct, we've seen large increases in these sectors over the last 2 years as the momentum behind hydrogen's potential as a decarbonisation vector has increased. Thanks. So this is a snapshot of our portfolio companies, past and present, 24 in total. So of these, 17 directly use PGMs, with the others being in the PGM enabler category. Some of these names, such as Ballard and Plug, might be familiar, and we hope that several more of these will be more familiar and household names in several years' time. And now I'm going to talk through some of these in relation to PGM use. As already noted, PGMs are widely used across the hydrogen value chain and other closely related value chains, particularly associated with CO2. So I'll talk through each of these sections and provide an example from our portfolio to help bring this alive a little bit. The charts refer to whether we designate the technology as a direct PGM user or an enabler, and green marks a stronger response to PGM use than orange. So firstly, on production. So green hydrogen, where you are splitting water using renewable energy, largely use at least some PGMs, with the exception of solid oxide electrolysis. So PGMs are used as catalysts across electrolysis, whether it's alkaline and AEM, although the PGM loadings there tend to be much lower than PEM, and generally platinum we find is used, although we have seen some minor metal use in alkaline and AEM as well. In PEM electrolysis, both platinum and iridium tend to be used with higher loadings in respect to alkaline and AEM. Conversely, some other forms of low carbon production from natural gas, where you are producing a relatively pure hydrogen and a pure CO2 stream, sequestration, do not use PGMs. And this hydrogen production is an interesting market. Not only is it one that is predicted to see massive growth out to 2030 and beyond across multiple geographies and sectors, but as we clearly see here, some technologies use more PGMs than others. So this, to a certain degree, you can help influence the amount of PGM demand through the technology choice. One of the technologies that we are invested in within this space is a company called Hystar that is based in Norway. So it has differentiated IP for PEM electrolysis. The technology was developed within a research institute for over 10 years before we helped spin it out from the research institute Sintef around 2 years ago. So the technology has a higher efficiency than competing technology in its area, using less energy to split a molecule of water to create hydrogen. And they've recently announced a 1 megawatt project with Equinor and other partners for the production of green hydrogen at an existing demand site. So replacing some of the incumbent hydrogen demand from fossil fuels. So we believe that PEM has some nice advantages over competing hydrogen production technologies like alkaline in regard to density, in directly pairing with a renewable energy load, and with requiring a simpler overall balance of plant, because you aren't having to deal with potassium hydroxide as an electrolyte. You're simply using deionized water. We then further think that Hystar's efficiency will place it competitively on the cost curve, as the levelized cost of green hydrogen production is around 70% capex versus 30% opex. So this is a good example of an area where of the hydrogen value chain, where the extent to which PGM demand can be best supported can depend on technology selection. Moving to purification. So purification of hydrogen is required in varying amounts across different hydrogen production sites, but has a larger requirement in the production of blue hydrogen, where the hydrogen is produced from natural gas and produced CO2 is separated from the hydrogen stream, captured and sequestered. Hydrogen purification today is largely done using a non-PGM technology called pressure swing absorption, which is effective, but also requires a large amount of energy to operate, as well as significant capital outlay. The technology is also economic at a large scale and not so economic at a smaller scale. So we have invested in both electrochemical and metal membrane-based separation technologies, both of which use PGMs. One of our more recent investments is a palladium membrane technology company called Hydrogen Memtech. So the company, like HiStar in the previous production section, is also based in Norway and uses a palladium membrane to separate hydrogen from a range of gases under pressure. Palladium is very effective at hydrogen separation due to pore size and is highly selective, only allowing hydrogen molecules to pass through while rejecting larger molecules such as CO2, nitrogen, and methane. So this tech is scalable, offers a compact solution to both small and large-scale separation applications. Palladium is also an interesting market, as I'm sure has been touched on the presentation so far, or will be. The market for palladium is largely dominated in the automotive industries. So finding new markets for palladium is particularly of critical importance. Moving on to storage and transportation then. So we've talked about it a little bit, but most hydrogen produced today generally feeds straight into an end-use application, such as ammonia production, and there is not therefore a requirement for storage and transportation. So much smaller volumes of hydrogen today are stored and transported. This aspect of the value chain has been debated a lot, in which medium is best to use. Some people talk about ammonia, where the molecule is NH3 and can be used as hydrogen storage. It also has the advantages of being an existing market and supply chain. So we have invested in a modular ammonia production and cracking technologies. And by cracking, I mean then releasing the hydrogen from the ammonia at the point of use. We've also invested in a German technology called Hydrogenious that uses liquid organic hydrogen carriers, or LOHCs, as they are abbreviated to store and transport hydrogen. So this technology, like ammonia production and cracking, has two parts to it. One part where you hydrogenate the liquids, where you essentially attach the hydrogen to it, and then one where you dehydrogenate it. So you release the hydrogen again at the point of use. We like this technology as it can reuse a lot of the existing oil and gas infrastructure, such as pipelines, tankers, and trucks. The medium is also non-flammable, transports at ambient temperatures and pressures, and the hydrogenation, dehydrogenation cycling can be repeated thousands of times. Both of these two reactions both require significant amounts of PGMs and also across multiple metals too. The company is currently working on numerous projects to demonstrate its technology in transporting hydrogen across different countries and also continents. So we see this as a core tech for being able to transport hydrogen from areas of very low cost production, like in South Africa or in the Middle East, to where perhaps there is a higher cost of production, for example, in parts of Europe. So that's some of the projects which they're working on at the moment. Moving now to end-use applications. And here we delineate between fuel cell technologies and other end-use applications. So firstly, fuel cells. So these can be either stationary or for mobile applications or mobility applications. The predominant technology is PEM, which uses platinum. So you find platinum on both generally on both the cathode and the anode. And due to size constraints, mobility fuel cells are often much more energy dense and therefore have higher PGM loadings versus their stationary counterparts. So currently, both mobility and stationary applications tend to have gaseous storage of hydrogen associated with them. For instance, if you have a Toyota Mirai and you go to fill up at a station now, it'll be gaseous hydrogen that you use. So we believe that in some end-use applications, perhaps not in passenger vehicles, but in some markets, for example, in shipping, it may be beneficial to fuel vehicles with a hydrogen carrier, such as ammonia, and then crack the ammonia on board to hydrogen to then feed the pure hydrogen stream into a fuel cell. You then reduce the complexity of dealing with gaseous hydrogen and also the space associated. So across this area, we've invested in both an innovative PEM fuel cell technology called Group, and also a small ammonia onboard, specifically looking for onboard mobility applications. It's a cracking technology that's targeting those markets. So both of these use PGMs, platinum for the fuel cell, and then minor metals for the ammonia cracking. So Group has an innovative cell design that makes it more competitive, that we believe it makes it more competitive in certain markets than existing products, and also allows for a simplified manufacturing process. And they are currently working across different industries, particularly in industries where large amounts of power are required and generally harder to abate the carbon emissions. So they're based in Switzerland. And Amogy, which is the ammonia technology, they're based in New York, and as I said, they're developing a miniaturized ammonia to hydrogen cracking technology. The cracker uses minor metal PGMs and is integrated with an ammonia storage tank and PEM fuel cell to provide a carbon-free, scalable power pack for heavy-duty mobile applications. So that company has demonstrated their technology so far on a drone, on a tractor, and is now working on projects across aviation and marine. And in that investment, we invested alongside Amazon. That's one of our 4 investments we have alongside Amazon. So the company is targeting as an end market, those hard to abate sectors, generally for on and off-road, heavy-duty transport, marine, and aerospace. So I guess a theme that we have is that we think that there will be not a one-size-fits-all for mobility applications, and that there will be a range of solutions that best fit the end use. So we're exploring gaseous, ammonia, LOHC, and different streams to help best cater for a given end solution, whether this is marine, aviation, or mining. And then finally, on the bottom right, we are exploring the substantial links where green hydrogen can help decarbonize other operations outside of fuel cells, either where hydrogen is already core ingredient, for instance, in ammonia, NH3, or where we are looking to replace hydrogen from fossil fuels in either a combination with CO2 to create a carbon neutral solution, or for chemical production. Finally, we're also looking at other areas here where hydrogen, for example, can be used with CO2 and nitrogen to grow bacteria to produce protein. So we actually find the more we look and the more we explore, the more technologies, firstly, are looking to use hydrogen, and also the more technologies that use PGMs as part of this process, either associated with hydrogen or as part of their chemical pathway. So example of one of these investments is called Infinium, which produces sustainable aviation fuel. So the technology takes in CO2, green hydrogen, and then uses renewable energy to combine these molecules, replacing the carbon and hydrogen from fossil fuels with carbon from CO2 and green hydrogen from water splitting to produce a drop-in replacement for aviation fuel. So you would be able to use this on a flight to Europe or to the US or to China. And we like this because something like aviation is a hard to abate sector. There aren't many other opportunities or technologies that can decarbonize in a short space of time. So we really like this story. And this is another example where we're invested alongside Amazon. So hopefully you've been able to observe that there's a close and integral link we see between PGMs and decarbonisation through the hydrogen value chain, also the other closely linked value chains. And as a fund, we are actively trying to facilitate increased PGM demand through the cultivation of a global hydrogen and decarbonisation ecosystem. That largely concludes our presentation. Thanks very much for listening. And if you have any questions or would like to learn more, then please do reach out.